These are the solutions for the SAT practice test number 6, section 3, no calculator math section. Question number 1 asks that if Salim wants to purchase tickets from a vendor to watch a tennis match, the vendor charges a one-time service fee for processing the purchase of the tickets. The equation T equals 15n plus 12 represents the total amount T in dollars Salim will pay for n tickets. What does 12 represent in the equation? If we have the equation T equals 15n plus 12, and we let n equal 0, as in 0 tickets, then this goes to 0, and we are left with just 12. So if you buy no tickets, theoretically, you're charged $12, and that makes $12 the service fee. So the answer is B. Question 2 says that a gardener buys 2 kinds of fertilizer. Fertilizer A contains 60% filler material, so we write A and we write 60%. 60% filler material by weight, and fertilizer B contains 40% filler materials by weight. So we write B and 40%. And the reason we do this is so we don't have to go back and read the question, or at least not all of it. Together, the fertilizers bought by the gardener contains a total of 240 pounds. We can write that here, 240 pounds total of filler materials. Which equation models this relationship where x is the number of pounds of fertilizer A? So we'll put a little x here, and y is the number of pounds of fertilizer B. So we'll put a little y here. So it should be pretty clear that 60% of x plus 40% of y is the total filler material, which is 240 pounds. So 60% is 0.6 of his times, and x plus 0.4 times y is 240. And that is B. Question 3 asks, what is the sum of the complex numbers 2 plus 3i and 4 plus 8i? And if you're wondering what they mean by a complex number is just a number that has a real part here and an imaginary part here, where I equaling the square root of -1, I is the imaginary number. So we have 2 plus 3i added to 4 plus 8i. And we add like terms. We add the 2 to the 4, and we get a 6. And if we look, there it is, answer C is correct. We could also go ahead and add the 3i and the 8i, and we get 11i, which confirms our answer is correct. Question 4 asks, in the equation above, P and T are constants. Which of the following could be the value of P? Well, 4x squared minus 9 is a difference of squares, and that will always factor as follows. You'll take the square root of this entire first term, which is going to be 2x, and then plus, and then the square root of this term, which is 3. And then we repeat, but with a minus sign. 2x minus 3. So, P is this one right here, the 2, and the 2, because it's in the same place as the P up there, and the P right there. And so, the answer is A. if you want to confirm that this equals this, we can do it by distributing. 2x times 2x, 4x squared. 2x times negative 3, negative 6x. 3 times 2x, plus 6x. And then 3 times negative 3, negative 9, minus 6x, plus 6x. And there you have it, 4x squared minus 9. Just what you started with. Question 5 says, which of the following is the graph of the equation y equals 2x minus 5 in the xy plane? Well, we're looking for a y-intercept of negative 5. There's our y-intercept right there. And if we look carefully, we'll see that there are two graphs that have a y-intercept of negative 5. We have a y-intercept of negative 5 right down there, and we have a y-intercept of negative 5 right down there. And what you should know is that this is a positive slope, that's positive, positive, positive slopes, and these are all negative slopes. So just visually, we can tell that it has to be D because it has this slope here, and that slope is positive. And our slope in the problem is right here, the 2x, and that's a positive 2. Question 6 says, if x is 2/3 y and y is 18, what is the value of 2x minus 3? Well, if we're a little bit clever, what we can do is we can solve for 2x. We have 2x here, so we can figure out, if we can double this, that means basically doubling this. It's going to be 2/3 y times 2. And that's going to be 4/3 y. Y is 18, so that's going to be 4/3 of 18. Cross cancel, 3 divided by 3 is 1, 18 divided by 3 is 6, and we get 2x is equal to 24. And then so that means that 2x minus 3 is equal to 24 minus 3 is equal to 21. So the answer is A. Question 7 says, a bricklayer uses the formula N equals 7LH to estimate the number of bricks N needed to build a wall that is L feet long and H feet high. Which of the following correctly expresses L in terms of N and H? And all of that sounds very complicated, but what they give you is N is equal to 7LH. And when they say L in terms of N and H, right here, L in terms of N and H, what they really want is what does L equal? That means we want to get L by itself. So to get L by itself, we have to divide both sides by 7H so that they cancel. And then we divide this by 7H, and there's our answer. L is equal to, because the L right here is by itself, L is equal to N over 7H. And that is C. Question 8 says the table above shows some values of the functions w and t. There's the function w, there's the function t, and they want to know for which values of x is w of x plus t of x equal to x. So really all we need to check is which row is this one plus this one equal to that one. Okay, so we're going to have plus and equals. And so we can check. Negative 3 plus negative 1 does not equal 1, so that's out. Negative 1 and 3, well, that does equal 2, so it must be row 2. So B is our answer. Question 9, the square root of x plus the square root of 9 equals the square root of 64. Well, what they are basically looking for you to do is to rewrite it quickly as root x plus 3, because the square root of 9 is 3, equals root 64, which is 8. And that means then you subtract 3 from both sides, and you simply get the square root of x is equal to 5. And so we all know that the square root of 25 is equal to 5. So the answer is 25, C. Now the one thing which might be a little bit of a trap is the square root of x plus the square root of 9 is equal to the square root of 64. And the tricky answer is 55 right here, which is not the right answer. But if you say the square root of 55 plus the square root of 9 is equal to the square root of 64, some people might think that's correct. But just because 55 and 9 add to 64 does not make this true. This is not true, and this is not an answer. The answer is C. Question 10 says that Jamie is preparing for a bicycle race. His goal is to ride an average of at least 280 miles per week. So what that basically means is that he's going to ride, this is for 4 weeks, so he's going to ride 280 times 4 miles. And he bicycled 240 miles the first week, so that's 240 the first week, 310 the second, so plus 310, plus 320 the next week. And which inequality can be used to represent the number of miles? X, so he's going to ride X the fourth week, number of miles Jamie could bicycle on the fourth week to meet his goal. So this is going to equal 280 times 4, because he's riding 280 miles a week for 4 weeks, and if you add up all of those, that is what he should ride in 4 weeks to get this amount here. So the answer is D. Of course, this talks about an inequality, and there it is right there. Right there, it says that this part of the equation is actually larger than, because if you're preparing for a bike race, it's usually okay to ride more than you were hoping to ride, because you will be that much stronger. Number 11 gives you the picture of a quadratic function, y equals ax squared plus c. And by looking at that quadratic function, we know that if a is positive, and I write positive with a plus and a circle around it, then we have a shape that looks like that. If a is negative, we have a shape. So if a is negative, then our shape is going to look like that. Well, because our shape is curved up, that means that a is positive, and we do not have this case. We have a is positive, and we also know that this value right here is going to be c. That's our y-intercept. That comes from right here. Which of the following is true about the parabola with the equation y equals negative a, parenthesis, x minus b, all squared, plus c? Well, this is vertex form of a quadratic function. Now, normally in vertex form, we have this, y equals a, x minus b squared plus c, where b comma c is our vertex. And so that's out, and that one is out as well. Now the only question is, does it open upward or does it open downward? Well, in our question, we have a minus sign on that a, but we know from above that a is positive right here. Therefore, negative a is actually going to be negative, and that's going to cause our graph to open downward. So the answer is B. Question 12. Which of the following is equivalent to 4x squared plus 6x divided by 4x plus 2. This looks like a polynomial division question, which you usually have one of on an SAT. So what we need to do is divide 4x plus 2 into the numerator, which is 4x squared, plus 6x, but we have to remember to put in the plus 0, because we have 0 x's. So we go 4x squared divided by 4x, and that's going to be x, and we put it above the other x's. And then we say x times 4x, that gives us our 4x squared. And then we have x times 2 gives us plus 2x. And then we subtract, and 4x squared minus 4x squared gives us nothing. 6x minus 2x is 4x. And then we drop the 0, plus 0. This makes for an easy division problem. 4x here divided by 4x here. Well, that's just going to be 1. So we have a plus 1. And aha, it's got to be D. Now, if I were really confident, I'd move on. But we can also double check. 1 times 4x, 4x. And the 1 from up top times the 2 is 2. And when you subtract, you get minus 4x minus 4x is nothing. 0 minus 2 is negative 2. So here's how you rewrite it. X plus 1 plus negative 2 over the divisor, which is 4x plus 2, and that does match D. Question 13 talks about the types of solutions of a quadratic. In the equation above, t is a constant. That means just a number. If the equation has no real solutions, which of the following could be the value of t? Well, I'm going to rewrite this in standard form. 2x squared minus 4x minus t is equal to 0. And this is going to be my a value. This is going to be my b value. And this is going to be my c value. Now in the quadratic formula, the zeros are x equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. It is this part right here, this is called the discriminant, and that determines what kinds of zeros we have. If this is negative, we're going to get the square root of a negative number, which gives us no real solutions. It gives us imaginary solutions. So we have to solve for b squared minus 4ac. Well, and it has to be negative. B squared minus 4ac has to be less than 0. And so b squared, well, b is negative 4. You square negative 4, you get 16. Minus 4, a is 2, and c is negative t, less than 0. Now we have an inequality that we can solve for t. 16, we have minus, minus, that's going to give us a plus. So we can ignore the signs. 4 times 2 is 8 times t is plus 8t less than 0, minus 16 minus 16, and we have, those go away, 8t less than negative 16 divided by 8 divided by 8, and we have t is less than negative 2, and the one answer that works is A. Negative 3 is less than negative 2. Question number 14 is near the end of this part of section 3, and it has a lot of reading, and hopefully it doesn't have a lot of math, although sometimes as you get closer to the end of a section, you can have a lot of reading, and the math is a little bit challenging as well. A laundry service is buying detergent and fabric softener from its supplier. The supplier will deliver no more than 300 pounds in a shipment, so that means 300 pounds max. and that's what I'm going to write down. Then I don't need to read that sentence again. Each container of detergent weighs 7.35 pounds, D, 7.35 pounds, and each container of fabric softener weighs 6.2 pounds. S for softener, 6.2 pounds. The service wants to buy at least twice as many containers of detergent as fabric softener. And this is the dangerous part of the question. It's very tempting to say twice as many containers of detergent as fabric softener. But if you do that and you test it, you'll see that it's wrong. Because if you make S, which is right here, if you make S 10, D is only 5. So you would actually have half the detergent as fabric softener. And so our initial instinct might be to write this equation, but it's actually wrong. So what you want to write is that D is twice S, and then we have to check because it's going to be an inequality. The service wants to buy at least twice as many containers. So at the minimum, twice as many, but it might buy more. So we're going to go like that and like that, because at least means at the minimum twice S, but perhaps more. Which of the following systems of inequalities best represents the situation? Well, now that we have all our numbers written down, it makes a lot of sense to say that 7.35 pounds of detergent plus 6.2 pounds for each softener is going to be 300 pounds. And that's the max. So we have to have basically less than or equal to 300 pounds. And if you look at your answers, you will see that this is wrong and that is wrong. And our original instinct would have given us this answer here, but it's actually this one, because this equation is the same one that we have. Question 15 is the last question on the first part of section 3. Which of the following is equivalent to A plus B over 2 all squared? And this is a classic binomial squared. And basically what you need to do is you need to take the first term, the A, and you need to square it. A squared. And then you need to take the second term, including the sign, and square it. Plus, well, when you square B over 2, it's like B over 2 times B over 2. That's B squared over 4. But there's always a middle term, and that's going to be the product of these two terms. This times this, and then times 2. So that will be A times B over 2 is AB over 2 times 2. So we have AB over 2 times 2, and the sign is going to be positive from above, but these 2's cancel. So the answer is D. Question 16. If A to the power of B over 4 is equal to 16 for positive integers A and B, what is one possible value of B? Well, you should know that 16 is 4 squared, but it's also 2 to the 4th. So if we choose A equal to 4, then we would have 4 to the power of B over 4, and that would need to equal 16. And that means that this power needs to be equal to 2. So B over 4 would have to equal 2. That means that B could equal 8. So you would grid in, you can grid in 8. If you use this one here, then you would have 2 to the power of B over 4, and the B over 4, this would have to equal 4, and in that case, B would equal 16, so you could grid that in as well. Both answers would be right. Number 17, what value of T is the solution of the equation above? Well, 2/3 T equals 5/2. What you do here is you multiply both sides by 3/2, and that gets rid of it, times 3/2. So T is 15/4, and you would grid that in. Question 18, it's a little geometry question. These are left over from our last question, so I'll just scribble them out. You should immediately recognize that CDB, that triangle there, CDB, is a 6, 8, 10 triangle, because you should know your Pythagorean triples. And then if we have the larger triangle here, this is 18, they're asking for CE, which is this. This is unknown. Well, if you jump from the 6 to the 18, you multiply by 3. That means if you jump from the 10 to the question mark, you also have to multiply by 3. And so the question mark is 30. So CE is 30. You could also set up a ratio. You could say 10 to 6 equals the question mark to 18. And then you could multiply both sides by 6, or rather by 18. Those cancel. Times 18. 6 divided by 6 is 1. 18 divided by 6 is 3. 3 times 10 is 30. You grid in 30. In number 19, which is about percentages of concentration, it's always best to set up a table. We have the percent times the amount equals the amount of stuff. And so here's my table. If I have 25%, which is really 0.25, it asks how many liters of a 25%. Well, that's X is my amount, okay? And that's going to be, well, the product, 0.25x. And then I want to add that to 3 liters. Well, that's my amount is 3, of a 10%, which is 0.10. And these are multiplied. And that's going to equal, well, 3 times 0.10 is 0.3. And we're going to add those up. Big plus over here. We're going to obtain a 15%, which is 0.15. My amount is going to be x plus 3. X plus 3. And that's going to equal 0.25x plus 0.3. And I have to distribute here. 0.15 times x, 0.15x, plus 3 times 0.15 is 0.45 equals 0.25x plus 0.3. Now I'm going to subtract 0.3 from both sides. Gone, gone. Minus 0.3, I'm going to write 30. And then I'm going to subtract 0.15x from both sides. Gone, gone. Minus 0.15x. And I'm almost done. 0.45 minus 0.3 is going to give me 0.15. And then 0.25 minus 0.15, that's going to give me 0.1x. And then I divide both sides by 0.1. Or, well, let's do the divide by 0.1, and you end up getting 0.15 over 0.1. We're going to multiply both sides by 10, and then we get 1.5 over 1, which is 1.5. The other way you could have done it, which might have been a bit quicker, is if you had 0.15 equals 0.1x, you could have just multiplied both sides by 10. That would have caused this decimal to bump over Now you have x by itself times 10, and this decimal bumps over to 1.5, and you grid in 1.5. Question 20, which is the last question. Scribble out our answers from before. Points A and B lie on a circle with radius 1. Let's draw that. Circle with a radius of 1. Arc AB has length pi over 3. Well, pi over 3 is approximately 3.14 over 3. That's approximately 1. So our arc is going to be somewhere here. It's going to be almost as long as our radius. Okay, so we got arc AB has length pi over 3. What fraction of the circumference of the circle is the length of the arc? Well, we know that our circumference is equal to 2 pi r, but r is 1, so it's equal to 2 pi. And so this out of this is the fraction. So we have pi over 3 over 2 pi over 1. Flip and multiply. That's pi over 3 times 1 over 2 pi. Pi's cancel equals 1/6, and we grid that in. Thanks for watching.